All right, this is just a brief introduction to the Table Talk video that you have clicked on. This particular video contains only the discussion from the end of the session because there really wasn't a discussion at the beginning of the session, and what little there was is included in the actual play. So what did we talk about at the end? Primarily, we talked about how this session and the one before it were approached differently than the previous two episodes. Different uses of threat and a modulation of how preparation was being done. We talked a lot about the nature of threat as the understanding and the experience of the players has grown in relation to that concept of playing a game that includes momentum and threat and values and determination and that sort of thing. And from my perspective of growing an experience with them as players. So it's kind of an interesting conversation, and if you're just getting into Star Trek Adventures, it may have some real value. All right, let's not waste any time and get to it. So we've just closed out with a dramatic revelation of some looming threat as the game master is sitting on a pool of 14 threat. And the last shot of the session is of the former captain of the Avicenna and some intimation that there is some nastiness ahead.
Fantastic. Well, battle lines are drawn for the showdown next time, I think. Absolutely. This is a real nice example, this session or this episode, these two of it's like do shit and it booms. Do shit and and now it's time for the okay, GM prep now. Right. Here you go. How complicated is it? How threatening is it? Now is your prep for the second half of the episode.
It's fun.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about threat now, Casey? I remember a couple of sessions ago you said you were curious about how threat plays into preparation. So having played a few more sessions since that question, what are you seeing or feeling or thinking?
I still need to really digest what you make on the the prep videos that you've made. Really need to sit in on that. But I also mentioned that I'm working out some sort of like treatise on threat. The tentative title is How I Stopped Being Afraid of Threat and Loving Threat.
Right.
Right. And
no threat, no plot, right?
Yeah, no threat, no plot. And in a sense that the system builds in threat to be that you're not going to win in a situation.
Right.
You're never going to win in a race against threat. So it's much more counterintuitive to try to reduce the GM's threat, not give him threat, and build up our momentum base. I think that's but that's not the healthy paradigm to look at threat and momentum. Use threat as the story device or the story fuel, and to just pour it in.
It's kind of like it's like picking your battle, right? If you like the battle you've got and don't make threat, just you're probably going to get some complications through the rolls, but it might get more complicated. but this is the battle you want. Whereas if you're in some situation and you're like, you know what,
I just want to get out of this.
Well, I can, but this is going to get bigger. That I can live with this turning into a big ass problem.
Yeah.
Here you go, GM. Make this the problem, the big ass problem.
Yeah.
You go right ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's no wonder you did it with your parents, of course, right?
Because
of course, the whole the whole point of them is to be threatening. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
So
so there was interesting things like, when I'm thinking about the role, I'm thinking about, do I want this to bite me back later on?
Right.
And I rather buy dice with threat than using momentum.
Well, you'll notice we threw threat into the whole thing about Anders.
Exactly.
We want this to be threatening, right? We want to cut to that scary bit there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. My take too is that I'm feeling more comfortable with really just driving into the values, which is no more nor less than to say, play your character, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what we came to do. We didn't come to obey orders.
A Starfleet
Right?
officer in this situation
Exactly,
would always
yeah. A Starfleet officer would never draw his phaser with intent to kill unless, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So, and so it's really, you're playing. This is an interesting point. In the game that I'm playing right now, Chaotic, the mandated situation for the characters, because it's very mandated, it's a really clear game in this regard, is brutally dangerous. And teamwork is absolutely essential. I mean, absolutely essential to function. Otherwise, you're going to get shot, mind roasted. The aliens will invade Earth and blow it up. I mean, everything will go wrong. Everything bad will happen if the characters can't pull together. The nature of character creation creates a whole bunch of neurotic, partly reluctant, high agenda, riddled with espionage, characters who are on this team for a wide variety. It's not quite like Paranoia, where by definition they're all just bonkers and it's all a big parody, but they come in with a lot of reason to play it, to try and manage the teamwork and get what they want out of it. And the players are in the position where they are going to have to find some way, to do this. And here, so there, the balance of, you better work together as a team because the game's trying to kill you. The game is trying to kill you, make you wretched, and bad things will happen that you as the player are going to find very terrifying and disgusting on a whole scale, right? If you don't.
Yeah.
And playing your character makes it more fun because your character is more problematic, right? Who cares if we all just play? Who cares if we all just buddy up? Who cares if we're all a bunch of Boy Scouts? We're not here to see that show. We're not here to see that movie. We're not here to author that kind of story. It's going to be hard because we are who we are. Here is a little different. I mean, here it's kind of like that. Who wants to play a game where we all make paragons of Starfleet? Right? Who wants? I don't want to see that show. That's
well,
boring.
they already made it. It was called The Next Generation.
Well, in many ways, yeah. I mean, and that's why The Next Generation only became fun when Data went haywire. Jean-Luc Picard becomes Borged, right? Or some other.
Right, they bring
some
in like
other aspect.
Ensign Rowe, Roe Laren.
Right, you have to bring in dissenters. You have to you have to figure out a way for Worf to be compromised politically, right, with the Klingon Civil War. You have to find a way for the characters to be problematic and to be thrown on their own devices,
but still
or who needs
be
this?
representative of Starfleet rather than just.
Well, that's why the show,
that.
that's why the show keeps,
That's where
in
the
my
tension
opinion,
is, right? The internal.
Well, I'm not
tension.
sure if it's tension or not. Every time
I guess
where
we
right.
would hope that there could be tension, I guess. Is,
right.
But
right. Well, the show tries at its best moments. The show does create that tension.
The thing about momentum and threat that speaks to me, or the thing that I see, is from that in character perspective, is that I want to draw on momentum if that's the source of my action as a character. Like, am I doing this by myself, for myself?
Right.
Then I don't want to use momentum or threat. I just want to use the 2 dice. Or am I building on what has already happened in play because of teamwork, because of assistance? Then I want that momentum because that's what that shows.
That's kind of interesting.
If I'm taking a risk.
Yeah,
right,
what if you're being all mavericky, though? Isn't that
exactly
just as good momentum and threat, right?
Well, maybe it is, and maybe that's where I would mix momentum and threat, or maybe I'm doing the Corbomite maneuver, right, where I'm going to bluff all these Romulan starships. Well, the ship's going to explode, and no one will be able to use this space for like ever, or this giant the Syria, right, from the first coalition. It's like, yeah, well,
we've got the Corbomite device, and it's like, really, this is what you're going to do? Yeah, well, here's 6th threat. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
It's like, oh look,
yeah,
I
exactly.
got like 5 ones.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Or 5 20s.
Yeah. Well,
So,
we all will agree that Shatner had loaded dice.
there's a reason why in Starfleet battles the Kirk emulation in the legendary captain's rules had a luck rating of 99%.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
So that's how I see momentum and threat, is that tie
Right.
to my crew and whatnot.
Well, that would be an interesting. I think that's hypothetical. Have you played a player character before?
I have.
Mm-hmm.
It's even on the internet.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
on Complex Games Apologists channel. It's an
I would
episode
be
called
awfully interested in seeing your
Repatriation.
play of the game. But I do like the fact that we are throwing the currency of the game, the methods, the numerical methods of the game, that we are really playing with them hot and active as we go along. That's fun.
Where the rubber hits the road,
Yeah.
so to speak.
As a minor reflection that I thought you guys might be interested in, I was thinking about the prosthetic leg thing, and especially thinking in terms of the period, and it's not just nostalgia that says, oh, it's 1970, so we'll throw in 1970 stuff. That's not quite what I'm doing. It's more on respecting where the media culture was at the time, and thinking about it, that the only disabled characters in TV that I can think of was like the Detective Ironside in his wheelchair. And he's fully disabled, is the point, right? He's fully out of it. And this is before the $6 Million Man. And in the what was a TV movie, and then they turned it into parts of the pilot, through the development of the show, his trauma in recovering from the accident actually is the bulk of that story.
Yeah, it's so
it's
powerful.
not just super heroics. Yeah, those early episodes are quite astonishing in this regard. And so but those make him superhuman, right? The idea of literally a prosthetic, right? Not a superpower, a techno superpower, and that this is a part of the character now, but he's still Korsakov. He is up and running and, coping with security and stuff with his bad leg. So it is not a terrible leg, but it's not the old one either, right?
Right.
It is going to, I'm going to play him so that, we're going to see him getting used to it. We're going to see him,
Right on.
He's not going to hobble. I'm not going to hobble around, but he's going to get used to it.
Yeah, it has normal function.
Right. It has normal function, but it's not the old one.
This is something that I really
like the idea of that. A disabled guy who is
abled.
he's abled, and he has to adjust his life on this basis. It's true.
The game allows us to get this nuanced also. Like, this isn't just something that we bolt on.
Right. Well, it's a trait, right?
Traits.
Yeah.
And traits are inherently positive and negative. So positive, as long as he's wearing the prosthetic, he has normal. He has the function he had when he had 2 biological legs. He wouldn't notice a problem there in terms of doing what he wants to do physically. But it's something that has been added to him, which means it can be removed from him. Or if he gets shot or something, you as the player could say, you know what?
There are certain things it can't do, right, as well. Sometimes there are certain things it can't do. So here you go. Right.
So if it's like Sub-Zero or something.
Right. No, I completely get that. So I really like the idea that this is, in that sense, we have a very new character on, in TV, at the moment. And I kind of like that. So, yeah.
So on that same note, Casey, your family connections and your dark history in Starfleet have all come surging up in this episode. How does that
Yeah, I
how
like
does that
that.
work for you?
No, it's definitely one of the main challenges that I made Yang in mind with. This is what he was going to go through
Hmm.
eventually at some point. And the question for me now, for Yang at this juncture, is that it's been brought up. So how does Yang want it to end? Badly, or in I mean, it probably going to end badly in any way. It's just that on whose terms.
On whose turn, right?
Yeah.
You didn't get me kicked out of Starfleet. I scuttled my own career.
That's right. Well, I do like that though, because he is surrounded now by, if you will, peers and possibly role models for, do what you have to, and devil take the personal consequences.
Mm,
Um, and it's a being out in the Avicenna, it burns lives away. People give their lives, even if they're not dead, they often give their lives. So I
it'd be
think
a
that's a
hard thing to give up, right? I mean, imagine serving up close and personal with people whose lives you've saved because of your direct action, and then promotion comes knocking and you're going to be sent to
you
a
wouldn't be the
patrol
first, I
route,
imagine, right?
you know
Yeah.
on some backwater mail run, or something like that, or a desk job somewhere.
A desk job, but with more and more and more stars being added to it as you go,
Yeah.
right? Under the command of under the administrative command of so and so, these 10 missions were completed successfully. Have another promotion,
Right.
right?
Meanwhile, Anya Smith is still a
Right,
lieutenant.
right, exactly. Out there desperately attempting to,
It's kind
figure
of
out
interest.
alien chatter. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that our play so far has actually really brought up this question of rank and promotion, and I think that plays quite well into Yang's struggles. Like,
Hmm.
he's gonna have to question about the value of rank, I think. And yeah, and he's got role models to look at, people who stay true to themselves and people who stick to their ranks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting take that I wasn't expecting on Yang, but I think that it's the perfect place for Yang to be in to see this sort of thing, and that'll definitely play into his character growth per se.
Hmm. I like that very much. I'm
Mm.
looking forward to it, and it's it's interesting too that this game does a nice job with the supporting cast to play. That means we as players actually get to throw each other useful and challenging and rich moments for each other without just putting our own same damn characters nose to nose about it every single time, right?
Right.
We don't have to get stupid and say, strangely enough, the chief security officer and the young ensign are talking about it again, strangely enough.
Right.
um,
It's like the whole ship is empty. Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
And Buto is going to be interesting, I think.
He's has having having him elevated to player character status is almost, you can see, DeForest Kelly as Dr. McCoy adding in season 2 pretty easily. We got to get another player in here,
Right.
to the supporting character has sort of elbowed us in the eye and said, supporting my ass. Get me into the credits.
He feels important, which
Yeah.
which means with the next episode, not the next session, but the next episode, the things that you can do to the supporting cast, it may be. I mean, it's really exciting and tempting to go, let's give them a value,
Mm-hmm.
but increasing attributes, increasing disciplines, maybe, because I've seen the looks on your faces when you go, okay, Anya's only got what? Anya has a 10 in
Right.
this
Right.
this role.
Right.
Yeah.
This is why, right? If
Yeah,
they're going to
yeah.
be so
I
much
mean,
in the foreground, yeah,
right. If you play the supporting characters as characters, which we are really starting to do, then you look at the numbers and you're going, they need to be backed up. They need to,
Yeah.
we need backed
They
up
need
on
to
this.
reflect that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes perfectly good sense, especially once each one gets a solid value. No need to add values, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they're
Yeah.
a good solid.
They
We
have
could
to
do
have
that if
4. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not necessary.
I mean, if they become player characters eventually, then that's the time for more values. 1 or 2 is fine, I think, at this level, and after that, more numbers sounds perfectly reasonable to me.
And there's like adding in talents. I mean, you've all found how useful your talents are, each of their own particular roles. There may be a talent out there that speaks to them doing that.
That's actually a good idea. I think we should go trawling in the talents for next episode and see a couple that just speak to us for this or that
Actually,
character.
since you brought this up, who has made their reappearance for this episode? Is it Finch?
Joanne
Parker
and Jane Finch.
Finch. So they are
And
entitled
Anya
for...
and Mbuto have all reappeared, but we've adjusted Anya and Mbuto now. With
Finch seems to have gained this, but on the other hand, she's also whacked out on alien artifact, scariness, which is interesting because who knows? Okay, we will discover next episode whether that means she suddenly gets busted into NPC status and there's nothing we can do about it, right? That could be the case. On the other hand, if she's still a supporting character, it would be interesting to be able to play a character who is torn between the artifact and her newly discovered and assigned value.
I hope it will be interesting.
Right. So we'll see what Anthony says about that option when we get there. But,
yeah, you guys might keep me so busy in Part C that we never get the opportunity, but I can't say it didn't cross my mind.
I was going to say, between all that freaking threat that you're going to throw at us from that door, you got to spend that stuff somehow, right?
I'm just gonna increase the complication range on everything, just one at a time.
That's right. Everything's hard. Right.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Well, that's about it, or where are we at?
I think that's a fantastic place to end the recording and to bid everyone a fantastic day.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
All right. See you all.